And let's stick with the issue of power prices. After price hikes of 40% over the past 2 years, many people are set to get a very modest cut in July. But as I showed you yesterday, in 2021, the national average power bill was $1,645. That's when Labor stupidly promised to cut prices by $275. So we should be paying on average about $1,370 a year, yet most of us are coughing up almost exactly $1,000 more than that. So we're paying exactly $1,000 more for household power each year compared to what Labor promised. Let's go to Matt Rennie because he knows the electricity market inside out. He's the co-CEO of Rennie and joins us from Brisbane. Good to talk to you again, Matt. First up, the price cuts. Looks like, some people get a 5%, 2% price cut, but some, particularly in Queensland, are going to face a price increase still.
That's exactly right, Chris. And if we sort of take a bit of a step back here, there's only about 10% of New South Wales, about 8% of South Australia and about 9% of Victoria that are even covered by this DMO. And these are our most vulnerable customers that either can't choose to go into the market and find a better offer or aren't aware. And so in the context of the 40% increases they've got over the last 2 years, these reductions are actually quite small at 2 and 3%.
Yeah, and they don't come in till July the 1st, and that's, of course, when the current energy subsidies for people, about 5 million Australians, a subsidy Labor brought in because power prices were out of control, they cut out on July the 1. But presumably, come the budget, Labor's going to have to extend those subsidies or there'll be, to use a Donald Trump term, there'll be a bloodbath across the country.
Well, it's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, there's two issues that are pushing these power prices up. The one we all know about, of course, is the war in Ukraine. And that 2022 period was the largest increases in wholesale prices that we've had in about 15 years. But underneath that, and the AER themselves say this in their report, around 40% of the retail bills are actually caused by network prices. And that's the bit that we're looking at as we can see all these big network expansions that are happening in the next 10 years and the pressure that they're going to put on prices as well.
Yeah, I highlighted that last night, and that's exactly what I want to hear about from you. I mean, those gas prices have come down from those peaks post the Ukraine war, but let's firstly talk about the system. Here's Chris Bowen today in Parliament. He's still absolutely committed to the path he's on.
Trigger warning, I mentioned renewables. I know it sends those off. Opposite, Mr Speaker, but it's a statement of fact. Just a trigger warning to assist, Mr Speaker. I'm always here to help, and we'll continue to do what it takes to put downward pressure on energy prices, while those opposite promised lower prices and delivered higher prices.
Now, Matt, if this was a flattening off of prices before they come down and we suddenly get very cheap electricity across this country, I'd be very happy to be proven wrong and I'll dip my lid to Chris Bowen. But doesn't the massive expansion in transmission required to bring in all the renewables, these are regulated assets, there's a legislated, regulated return of capital on the investment. Doesn't this mean that higher prices are still locked in for years to come?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the transition from coal to renewables is one thing. And so over the last 20 years, we've seen prices of $45 to $60 a megawatt hour in coal. And in renewables firmed, we're still in that $70 to $100 a megawatt hour mark. And that's not really what's driving prices up. That $20 or $30 is not as much as what you find in the network prices and whether it's transmission or distribution, that connectivity is certainly going to be what pushes prices up again.
And how much higher could they go, driven by that connectivity, as you say?
Yeah, it's really difficult to say, Chris, for a couple of reasons. The first is that we're going to see people that are paying for petrol now in their vehicles are going to begin paying for electricity as they move to EVs. And that's the first thing. And the second is that as gas comes out of the system in the industrial customers, as they all commit to their net zero targets and all the rest of it in the next 15 years, and we see more electricity coming through the system, there's going to be an increase in scaling. So there's no doubt that in the next 5 to 10 years, people are going to be paying double what they're paying now, but they're actually substituting some of those other areas of expenditure. But like for like, there will be an increase in generation costs. There will be an increase in transmission costs for the very simple reason, and there's not too much complication about this. when you're moving from one power station at 3,000 megawatts to, 10 power stations, which make up the same number of megawatts, you need a lot more transmission to connect it. And there's no avoiding that.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Matt. Really good to hear from you. Matt Rennie there from Rennie. He's the co-CEO there. This is why I'm so pessimistic about our electricity grid. It's not because I make this stuff up. It's because it's what the experts tell us. It's what all the reality tells us. We're in for a world of pain.